And that was important for me to know, because if I didn't, I wouldn't feel as confident in doing my job. And I don't think I would do as good of a job if I wasn't as confident.
Absolutely. It's the devil's in the details. Like I do a variation of a Muda lock. I love watching the great Muda, and and some people will be like, oh, well, she didn't trap the arm with her and stuff like that. And it's like, well, maybe I didn't do that on purpose because of where I need to go in the match. You know, if I trap that arm and my opponent immediately gets to the ropes, then how good was my hold? But if I didn't trap the arm and they can get to the rope faster, there's a rhyme and a reason, people. There's a purpose. You know, if a wrestler really knows their art and really hones their craft and why their character would do that move instead of just doing gymnastics, you know, there's a will, there's a way, there's a rhyme and a reason. So with that being said, I would love for you to break down some of the stuff that you've been seeing over the last couple weeks for the WWE, Impact, and AEW, and kind of if there was anything you would do differently and what fans should be looking out for going into this week.
Impact, I think what has stood out to me is Good Brothers, Ethan Page, Josh Alexander. I think for Impact right now, online buzz is very important because even though you can watch them on Twitch, they're not getting the viewership that they once were. And unfortunately, the biggest piece of news that has emerged is that Kylie Ray left. And they could not have predicted that. That is just a very unfortunate situation. But I think that Ethan Page and Doc Gallows especially slapping each other and turning them into memes, that's funny. That's really good. And that's something that they need to lean on a little bit more. Chris Bay has gotten them a lot of attention because he got announced for the Super J Cup. That is huge for Impact Wrestling. For New Japan to trust anybody in Impact Wrestling right now is very big because New Japan has not forgotten all the ill will that TNA had developed with Dixie Carter over the years. So I think those are very important parts for Impact Wrestling specifically. AEW, man, they're doing a lot of stuff right. They have a lot of creative finishes. I always call it a cohesive show, meaning it flows together and a lot of it makes sense. There are a lot of things that are woven into one another there. And Full Gear was a really good example. You had MJF and Jericho with a very clever finish. Omega and Page was a good match that left more there, and you believe they're going to headline a pay-per-view. FTR and Young Bucks was awesome, and you saw something you didn't expect to see. Cash Wheeler went for a 450 splash, and it cost him the match. After years and years of saying no flips, just fists, he's like, I'll show you what I can do. And then he got super kicked for it. Fantastic finish. Elite Deletion was really good because it was so much different than the other deletions that Matt Hardy had. This one was really physical and violent, and it had its points of comedy, but it was still very physical. One of the things I would have changed about the show, I did not like the spot in Nyla Rose and Sheeta where Nyla Rose lifted up Sheeta's shoulders like, oh, I'm not done with her yet, and then Sheeta did the same. To me, like, I get what they're doing there, but this is for the championship. And I think when you do that and it's for the championship, it kind of undermines the value of that title. And I don't think you want to do that. On the other side of the coin, Serena Deeb, I can't believe she didn't wrestle for 5 years. I would not be able to tell that. She laid her stuff in hard. Thunder Rosa popped back up. That was awesome to see. Allison Kay looked really good that night. There was a lot of really great stuff coming out of that AEW show. On the WWE end of things, SmackDown's usually pretty good. I'll give them that. SmackDown's usually pretty good. But far too much lately, I have left WWE Raw saying, what did I just do with my 3 hours? Like, there's no progression there. I think that's an issue.
Would you think that there would be better progression if they went back to a 2-hour format? I feel like 3 hours, it's just too much. Bring back the 2 hours and make superstars really earn their spots on that main roster on Monday Night Raw, is my opinion.
Yeah, I wish they would. Well, I don't want to say unfortunately. It's great that they get money. It's great that they get a lot of money. But it's very clear that they're not going to do that because of the money. Because they're making so much that it doesn't make sense for them to not do 3 hours. But it's exhausting It's really exhausting. And I mean, I think they've learned during the pandemic. Probably they knew it before then, but you don't have to have super long shows for WWE. They've really limited the length of their pay-per-views to make them very digestible. That's one of my favorite things they've done, especially during the pandemic. They have shortened shows and made a lot of adjustments that make the show more immersive than it would be if fans were there.
I agree with that. Absolutely. I would almost like them to, in a perfect world, cut back Monday Night Raw to 2 hours and then cut back on the amount of pay-per-views to make the pay-per-views worth more and the storylines more evolved. And I also think that would save the bodies of the wrestlers a lot more, because it seems like every week when I go on social media, oh, new person's hurt. Oh, a new person got a concussion. Oh, another person's out for 6 months. It's kind of like that football aspect that's going on in 2020 as well, where it's like injury. Oh, this person got COVID, injury. Yeah. This person got COVID. Oh, almost this whole team got COVID. Oh, Edelman's, out for surgery.
The Bengals' entire offensive line was out last week, and to for a good example, they adjusted, they replaced a bunch of people, and they won one of their only games of the season. WWE's got to do that. Their backs are up against the wall. They've got to find things that work. One of my favorite things they've done during the pandemic is, instead of the generic heel comes out and says, all you people, there are no more all you people. They're gone. They're at home. So instead, you get more of a direct, emotional, story-driven promo from these people. We see it all the time with Randy Orton, with Edge, with Jey Uso, with Roman Reigns. We've seen a lot of really great promo work over the last, I can't believe it's been 8 months now.
And, I think one of the only people outside of the WWE to really sort of do that is, give me 1 second. I know his Twitter handle, and I'm trying to think. Eddie Kingston. Okay, Eddie Kingston. Oh,
gosh, yes.
His AEW stuff. Now, I worked with Eddie Kingston back when I was greener than grass. I was barely 2.5 years in the business, and I remember having, mixed tag matches with him, and I remember... I was so green. He was so nice to me, thank goodness, because he could have torn me to shreds and it would have been terrifying. But to fast forward, to see him cutting these emotional promos and people being surprised, it's like, that's something that he does best, guys. And I feel like WWE has been doing that a lot more, and I'm happy to see that instead of that generic, well, let me tell you something, brother, at SummerSlam, I'm going to kick your butt all the way to Pizza Hut. Instead of that generic, 1988 stuff that people were still doing before the pandemic, it's like, finally, we're getting that emotion that people can connect with subconsciously and on a personal level that makes them want to tune into a 3-hour program.
Yeah, I think they've got to make these people talk more like actual humans. They've made a big step by letting these wrestlers dress themselves. They don't have to come out in the same merch shirt and their gear all the time. You see Sasha Banks come out, and she looks awesome wearing whatever she's got. You see Seth Rollins come out in a suit. Bobby Roode comes out in his street clothes. I like that. It makes them more connectable. You're like, oh, I dress like that, or oh, I want to dress like that, and it connects more.
To your point, though, you have to be able to trust that your superstar knows how to do that. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, for example, would it make sense if Sheeta came out looking like my Ring of Honor character? No, that's not Sheeta. Would it make sense if Penelope Ford was coming out looking like Nyla Rose? Mm-hmm. It wouldn't work. Alexa Bliss looking like Sasha Banks, it's just different. So you have to have a superstar that knows their character and knows what the game plan is, and that's something that I think that AEW needs to work more on. For example, Anna Jay was in a skit recently, a backstage vignette, and I felt like she should have been dressed to the nines, like the evil queen that she is supposed to be, instead of in a zip-up sweatshirt, jeans, and Converse sneakers. I think that takes somebody backstage being like, hey, you're newer, let's do this, we're going to get you over. If you only have 2 lines, make sure people are still staring at you even when you're not talking, because you want to be that captivating. I think of it almost like The Rock. When The Rock, even when he was in promos and stuff, and he wasn't the one talking, you still gravitated to what he was doing because he was reacting over the top to stuff in the promos. I posted those GIFs on my social media all the time. And I think that that's something that more wrestlers need to pay attention to, that charisma, I don't know, it just gravitates and almost pulls you through the screen, and you don't even have to talk. It's just how you present and how you look and how you're reacting. You know, I didn't get to talk in a lot of my promos at Ring of Honor, and a lot of other people like Karrion Kross, before he got hurt, he figured out how to do that for himself very well in his promos that he was doing even prior to the WWE. I think more people need to pay attention to that and realize the value in that. So Sasha Banks, she's already got it. Seth Rollins, he already knows it. He knows, what he's doing. I think more wrestlers need more people to be like, hey, this is you, this is where your character's going, try this, or try putting on this. And I think that would be a lot more relatable and get their gimmicks over more on a personal level.
And Vince McMahon has to be willing to let it go through. Like, I can't tell you how many nixed pitches I've heard this year that sounded really, really great. Like, there was no way that these storylines were going to fail, and it's like Vince nixed them and then threw up a redo of what happened the week before. Like, Vince has to see that as well. It's hard for me to believe that somebody in their mid-70s can connect with an 18 to 49 demographic. There are plenty of people that can think younger than they really are. But, man, when you're talking, I don't know, 25 years younger on the deep end, like, that's tough. And Vince isn't there. Vince is a white billionaire 70-something-year-old. It's tough for him to relate to middle-class 18 to 49 people.
But that's when you have to have superstars that know how to do that for you, because that's a part of why you're hired to begin with. So if you're not appealing to a demographic, you're not giving a return on the company's investment. So then why do you have a job? So I think that's on them. I know lots of wrestlers that push that stuff through. And in AEW and Impact, it happens a lot more. I know in AEW it happens all the time. Like, John Moxley went to Tony Khan and said, me and Eddie Kingston can do a big pay-per-view match. Give us 4 weeks. Just give us promos. We don't need matches. And they did it. They built it, and it was awesome. Yeah, and that also takes, I think, creative ingenuity on some of the talent. I feel like sometimes talent is afraid to go and pitch things. And that's not everybody, because I've been backstage and seen plenty of people pitch stuff. But I also think it takes a level of confidence of your own spot within the company. I think some people are afraid to go and pitch because they think it might put a bad taste in other people's mouth and start heat and stuff. So I think sometimes it just has to go to, you got to bet on yourself and have confidence in what you can do, and make sure that if they do take your idea, that you deliver, just like Moxley and Kingston. Yeah, I completely agree. I think we've all that have been in the business have had that, moment of self-doubt where it's like, if I pitch this, am I going to be in trouble for trying to think for myself? Sure. Or if I pitch this, are they going to use it for somebody else? And I'm back at square one again with a great idea that's given to somebody else, which does happen all the time. I was in developmental. I remember when Aces and Eights was pitched and it was shot down. Oh. It was shot down at OVW, right? And then the next thing we know, we blink and Aces and Eights is on Impact Wrestling. Yeah. And we were like, what? It was so crazy. Lots of wrestlers are pitching for it to come back now. Like they wanted to come back. Deonna Purrazzo has been very open in saying, yeah, I want to be a part of new Aces and Eights. Like, bring it back. That's something that I wish Impact would have done differently. It was a very huge surprise. And I actually found out about it based on your tweet about Kylie Rae exiting the business. And I was like, first off. And then my second thought was, they should probably keep the belt on Deonna. Mm-hmm. I thought that, me personally, I felt like that would have been the better way to go, only because there were no offense to Sue Young or Susie. It's just there's so much you can do with building this huge chip as a heel for Deonna Purrazzo that I feel like really put a dent in that storyline, because there's so much that can be done between her and Jordynne Grace and rebuilding Taya Valkyrie. Yeah, I do too. I think she'll end up getting that title back. I think